My big suggestion to students, particularly through high school, is
you can do anything.
Choose it for you, not for it is worth it.
Just focus on the next step.
Doesn't matter what you're doing.
Don't be afraid.
As long as you're doing something.
That is such good advice.
I don't think I could see myself doing
It's
anything
a
else.
challenging life.
Student nights, Wednesday to Saturday.
I worked on that house.
I racked up every single dollar of debt that I
I
possibly
think there's
could.
a lot of pressure on high school.
Yeah,
kids
I just
these days,
love working outside.
And if money is something that you care a lot
In
about.
hindsight,
I've also been a very indecisive
But you
person.
keep looking for roads that have been less
It
travelled.
was just that moment that I knew what I wanted to do. So nothing else is going to change that.
Welcome to the guest speaker.
Yeah, look, I hope I do this introduction credit to you, Mitchell. And I almost considered Grace should have done it because, obviously you two know each other well, but I'm going to give it a crack. Look, thanks so much for, sharing time with us. I'm sure you'd rather be building a bivouac or, I don't know, throwing yourself off something, but here we go. I want to start by saying I'm slightly out of place here. I sort of, on the one hand, I have Grace, who lives to travel, explore, learn new things, see new people, and would be happy entering the amazing race year after year after year and living her life that way. And on the other is Mitchell. When your name is said, Mitchell Lamb, people wince and they go like, oh, that guy. The guy who throws himself off waterfalls, who seems to have zero fear of heights, water, danger, and despite having adrenaline flowing through his veins, has this relaxed smile like a well-trained sniper. That's how I'd describe you. And here I sit, liking my comforts of home, my pets, and my rather relaxed lifestyle, avoiding death as best I can. So here the three of us are today. Very different people. But that's what makes the guest speaker so special. We do not want everyone to grow up like ourselves or in a certain way. We are going out of our way to find people who are extraordinary, who can guide other people who may have the same extraordinary talent or desire. And today is no different. Today we offer you a young man who seems absolutely fearless in the face of danger and is paid to put others through experiences that challenge them. So if you're a student, a parent, or a child that has a tendency to find themselves on rock ledges, navigating the oceans, the rivers, the mountains, and you think, how can I harness this passion and what on earth can I do for it? This is for you. After leaving school, you attended Tai Poutini Polytechnic on the West Coast. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. You graduated with a diploma of instruction and guiding and began a career as a raft guide. Most of that time was on the famous Kaituna River. I've been on that raft trip on a number of Year 13 camps. It's incredible, awesome experience. Then you entered a school that takes students from a commonly accepted environment with Western ideologies into a school that literally challenges everything the rest of us see and experienced ourselves. World Class Academy is a high school that redefines education for adventurous athletes through global travel, elite coaching, and immersive learning. You are a program director. You clearly believe that education, real education, growth and knowledge comes not from a four-walled classroom. And here you are sitting in your car today, escaping those children that probably have their kayaks ready. It comes from traveling, interacting with different people, being put into situations where there isn't a right way, but you better choose an okay way or you could get in real trouble. The students eat, explore, kayak, surf, climb, mountain bike, and learn in places like Brazil, Greece, Canada, the Amazon, America, and beyond. The world is both your classroom and your teacher. It's welcome to Erica Stanford's worst nightmare. To some, this will sound like the only way to learn or a way they should have learnt. But I also imagine some will sit back and want to investigate your RAMS forms, challenge those ideologies, and want to know when they will ever see their child again, and whether or not that child will be well-educated, well-rounded, skilled in multiple languages, and fulfilled, or more like a modern Tarzan with dreadlocks. This I'm fascinated to explore. As a teacher at the World Class Academy, you will become a mentor, a guide, a saviour, a father, a friend. This will be interesting how you have taken your own desire for the outdoors, a time where our government challenges the legitimacy of outdoor ed and schools increase health and safety, and you forged a career that people I mentioned earlier the ones that hear your name, Mitchell Lamb, will sit back and go, yep, that guy's off the charts. And if anyone listening is wondering what I'm going on about, go onto your social media, look up Mitchell Lamb, and sit back and go, holy shit. Welcome to the guest speaker. Sorry to interrupt, like I said, your bivouac building or whatever the crazy stuff you do. Thank you for sharing, particularly with students who are different, who love the outdoors, who thrive in it and want to immerse themselves forever in it. Real pleasure to have you, Mitchell. And I've got to put a shout out to water polo because I've done that before on this show with Ben Hawkins, and I know you were another star at school with that. Can I, Mitchell, take you back to a little child at school and how you found that? Because I've pitched a picture of you being in a completely different educational environment at the moment as a teacher and educator. How was school for you?
I firstly want to say that we're a little bit more civilized than building bivouacs at the moment, Blair, but back to school. I really enjoyed school. I thought it was a great place you spend 6 hours a day hanging out with your best friends. We had a really good group of friends at school. I was relatively intelligent, like I didn't have to work too hard to pass classes, but I put a bit of effort in. And yeah, I really had a great time there. I think back on school very fondly. I played a lot of sports. I was engaged. My teachers were amazing. School was really fun for me, and I look back on that as a really cool formative chapter of my life for sure.
What sort of subjects were you involved in, Mitchell? Like, what were you strong at? Because I think you're teaching a bit of maths at the moment, are you? So
I took calculus, physics and chemistry, sports science and outdoor ed in my last year. And kind of leading up to it, I always thought I was going to go straight into university afterwards, and I wanted stronger academic subjects to set me up for that. And so that was kind of my reasoning for taking those. Yeah, I enjoyed the problem-solving aspect and the analytical aspect, and I liked having a right or wrong answer. I didn't like the literature or social studies subjects where they were a bit more interpretive, and you can come up with you can approach things from different angles. And when I was at school, I liked being right or wrong, I guess.
Okay, so you're enjoying, it sounded like you were going to be, like many of our kids, an engineer or something, very cool, that whole sort of, you're right, the right side of your brain.
Yeah.
When did you sit back as a child and start contemplating life after school? Was it something your parents engaged you with, the school? Where did you access that information, or did you just cruise? Or you said you thought of uni. What was your thought process?
Yeah, well, you know him pretty well, but Johnny Peter was a massive influence on kind of what direction I took my life after school. And throughout pretty much my whole high school career, I thought I was going to go into physiotherapy, actually. That was the thing that I was drawn to. I really wanted to work with the body, and I wanted to be a sports physio. And in my last year of school, Cambridge High had a mentorship program, and they paired you up with people in industries that you wanted to go into. And I did a few days in clinics with physios and chatted to them about their job and what it took to get there, and the reality of getting to be a sports physio and how hard it is that everyone wants to work for a professional sports team and very few people make it there. And just kind of what it looked like if I didn't make it to that point, if I was going to be in a clinic all day. And I kind of decided that wasn't going to be for me. And then Johnny was that little bird on my shoulder that was saying, you don't have to go straight into university. It's okay to take a year or two to figure it out. I loved Johnny's class at school at Outdoor Ed. It was a great class. I had a lot of fun. And he suggested going to a polytechnic, specifically Tai Poutini on the west coast of the South Island for a year. They did a year-long certificate program, and then you could carry on and do the diploma afterwards in the second year. So they were individual programs, and he suggested going there and told me to just go and see what it's like. And if I don't like it, then I can go to university the year after. And if I do, then who knows where it goes from there. So
how are your parents with this? Because I think some parents, when they have kids like you who go the adventurous route, maybe get a bit nervous. Definitely
nervous. I think they're still nervous about what I do. But they were extremely supportive with my decision, and Mum and Dad are both very firm believers in not wasting my time at university if I'm not 100% committed to to doing the degree that I'm studying. And so many of my friends at high school went into university and changed degrees or dropped out or went back to Waikato. And so it kind of cemented that I made maybe the right decision for myself in the moment. And yeah, they were very supportive the whole time.
Can you tell us then, because there'll be some kids going, I'm going to go to this thing on the West Coast. Tell us about that experience getting down there. Where do you stay? What's the study like? What are you learning? Because this is really interesting.
Yeah, so there's a few polytechnics around New Zealand that do the outdoor education program. And Tai Poutini was the one that I was recommended by Johnny because it had a really good whitewater environment. And I really enjoyed the kayaking and the rafting aspect of outdoor education at school. And so we went down, there was 30-ish kids in my year group. And then there was probably 20, 25 in the year group above me. So there's two, obviously the certificate and then the diploma students are all there at once. And we stayed in these, my first year, Grace came and visited me, but we were staying in like a 10-bed, like we had our individual rooms, 2 big kitchens, and it was kind of a 10-bed big house basically. And I was with 9 other students in my year group, the certificate of outdoor education. And then on the same campus, kind of all on a big road. And then there were just other buildings, little houses, like little units that were 1 or 2 person units, a couple 6, 7 bed houses. Yeah, so that was our accommodation. And then the campus was just across the road. And then obviously we were in Greymouth, which isn't a very big town. So there's not a whole lot to do outside of school that wasn't outdoor education focused. So in the weekends, you're going kayaking or going rock climbing, or you go for a hike in the bush that's 20 minutes away. Everything was within half an hour or 45 minutes. Like it was a pretty primo place to be.
The learning, like Mitchell, are you writing? Is it practical? How do you approach the assessment side of it?
They have obviously the practical assessments of the outdoor education pursuits, which is like rock climbing, kayaking, rafting, sea kayaking, mountaineering, and tramping. That was our 6 pursuits. On top of that, we do written assignments on like risk management and sports science and how the body works. And then we do a geology or ecology assignment and learn about the earth. And then we learn about the flora and fauna of the bush that we're walking through. And the first year is very much developing us as outdoor instructors or outdoor people. And then the second year moves into learning how to teach. So it's like breaking down all of the skills that we're learning and teaching us how to teach a skill, basically. And we learned about skill progression and how somebody learns, and that, you know, if you give them too much information, they're going to forget everything. And we kind of went through this whole process of how to teach all of these skills, as well as continuing to develop our like personal skills in these pursuits.
In terms of work, because sometimes we ask people how they're paying for it, do they have a job on the side? From my recollection, I have a high praise of Greymouth from this experience, Ludlam. It was a great, we went there, spent like a night hanging out, meeting everyone, partying a little bit. And then I was like, Greymouth is the best. But I noticed it was pretty full immersion. Like you're not, and I could be wrong, so if you speak to it, like you're not also having a job at the supermarket or something, right? Like you have to save and then you're there full time.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, once you're there, and everything outside of the school, you know, you'll be in class for a week, and then the next week you might go away to Murchison, which is 2 hours away, on a week-long kayaking practical week. And then the next week you come back and you do a day trip to Punakaiki, the pancake rocks at Punakaiki, and study the ecology and geology of the rocks there, and then come back to the classroom and relate that to these assignments that you're doing. And yeah, definitely no job in the process. I tried to even play basketball down there once a week, and even that was hard enough.
What's the cost like? Is it like a uni type cost, or how did that work?
Yeah, very similar in terms of fees for university, but you need quite a bit of your own equipment on top of that. And to start with, the Polytech has like a big gear shed that you can rent gear from that comes out of your fees, and then slowly you learn about what you need and what aspects of the program you enjoy more, so you invest more money into that. So like I bought my own whitewater kayak and my own kayaking gear and got a rock climbing harness and that kind of thing. And so yeah, there's definitely required gear, but relatively, I mean, my student loan was maybe 30 grand after 2 years, including my living and fees.
Yep.
So not too different to a normal education.
Okay, so you decided to do the 2 years because you got the diploma. During that time, because you said earlier you thought, well, you and your parents thought, if it doesn't work, I'll go uni, or I could do something else. It was obviously a point where you thought, well, actually, this is for me.
Yeah.
How did you move straight into employment like at Kaituna, or how did that next phase of your life go?
Yeah, so I went down with the idea that I was just going to do the first year, actually. I didn't even plan on doing the diploma. And after a month, that had gone out the window. I was definitely staying for 2 because it was just an amazing experience. And I think before we move on, I learned so much and grew so much as a person in that time being exposed to these environments. And I think I noticed that a lot coming back to my friend group that was at university and realizing how much I'd grown up and they necessarily hadn't a lot of the time. So that was really cool to see. And then, straight after the diploma, I got a job in Turangi, actually, working for Rafting New Zealand. And I did a season there. We talk seasons in rafting because we generally just raft summers. Most people are open year round, but it's a bit colder. So I did a season in Turangi, and then I went overseas to California and did a rafting season. Came back, got a job at the Kaituna, and then it was COVID. And so I was kind of just there for the next 5 years, 3 or 4 or 5 years here.
It's interesting you say how you grew. It was a maturity thing, was it? Or just a learning of skills and composure? Is that what you felt you got out of it?
I think a little bit of both. I definitely matured in some aspects, and I probably still lacked maturity in others for sure. But I definitely grew in a lot of places. You're being exposed to so many learning opportunities when you're in the bush for 10 days. And you're broken, and like the resilience that you learn and the things you learn about yourself when you're on the edge of the breaking point where you're pushing yourself physically and mentally to the edge. You learn quite a lot about yourself in that position. And I think all of us at Polytech really grew a lot as people in that time, especially the second year where then you're the one in charge of a group that's going down a river. And if anything goes wrong, it's on you to fix. And that's quite a stressful environment to be in. And so you learn, I guess I just learned a lot.
Well, that first year, you must have been teaching, you were not teaching, you were rafting in Rotorua, and then us girls, there's like a group of us 5 came, and we all commented on, like, it's Lamb, we're there to, like, hang out with our mate, but then he just switched, and it wasn't like, someone picks up the phone and they put their business voice on, but you could just see that sense of, like, responsibility came over it, because it is not just the own raft that he has, but looking out for other ones, because especially on that river, I think there's a few different companies that might be going. Like, it's not just you and your raft, it's everyone else. And that gravity of the responsibility you have really dawned on, I think, all of us, because even those of us who had gone down the river before, you're scared, you're not super comfortable. And I couldn't imagine maybe having tourists who can't swim or whose English isn't as great, and you're having to make this assessment of them and help them out and steer and do all that. And it's water, and water is not very forgiving. So all of that kind of came in as well. I was impressed.
Hey, Mitchell, it strikes me that career-wise, it's not going to be you're into teaching like I did and you get a job for 20 years. You have these seasons. So one, you've sort of given us a few. You got California, you got Kaituna. Was there any further seasons before you branched into the world-class stuff?
Yeah, I did a season in Canada after COVID. I was kind of unsure whether you could come back into the country, and so I got a 2-year working visa in Canada, and that way if I had to stay there for a winter and do a ski season or hang out, I could. And so I went to Canada and did a rafting season in Squamish, which was awesome, and then came back to New Zealand because I realized I don't like the cold that much, and did another season on the Kaituna, and then the next year I went back and just paddled. I did like a paddling. Lots of kayakers do trips where they'll go to California or to Canada for 2 months and just road trip around in kayak, especially in the spring. And so that's kind of what I did that year. And during that time, the year before and that year, I was in Canada quite a bit, and I met a guy that worked at World Class at the time and became quite good friends with him. And then that second time I was in Canada, I was talking about World Class, and he said that they were hiring, and that's kind of when that ball started rolling.
Okay, so you get a heads up there's a job. How did you go about applying, and how did you find that process?
Yeah, well, it was probably the first time I put a lot of effort into writing a CV, to be honest, because, every other job I'd applied for was at a rafting company, which they're not looking for academic people at a rafting company a lot of the time. So the CV doesn't really matter, but this was the first time that I'd put a lot of effort into it. And I was really unsure, not confident in my abilities because I didn't have a background. Like a lot of these people working at World Class are engineers or have these degrees or masters in engineering or biology, and they can teach these science subjects or literature and at a high level. And I'd done a diploma in outdoor instruction and guiding. In terms of what I had on paper, my education wasn't really there, but I had that background of instruction and working with people on Whitewater. And so I just applied and said that when I was at school, science and math were subjects that I enjoyed and was okay at, and somehow I managed to get a job. I think they were hiring 5 people that year, so that definitely helped, so that they needed 5 staff. The next year they just hired 1, so I think if I was among the people that applied the following year, I don't think I would have ended up in the same position I am now.
Okay, so there's people now sitting here going, they've heard my introduction and I've insinuated things and you've touched on it. What is this World Class? Where is it based? What the hell is it?
Yeah.
And how does it operate? I think there's a lot in behind here because there's kids who might go one day, that's their aspiration to work there. There's parents going, I want to send my kid there because they're manic. Tell us.
Yeah, so it's a really cool opportunity for kids, and it's a school. We max out around 22 students and they come to an academy. So World Class Academy is a umbrella, has 5 academies underneath it: surfing, mountain biking, rock climbing, kiteboarding, and kayaking. And I'm part of the kayaking academy. And so the year's broken up into the 4 school terms, and each one of those terms is in a different location around the world. So our first quarter typically is in Canada, and then in those 6 weeks that we're in Canada, we might drive around to 3 or 4 different locations with the school that are really good for whitewater kayaking. So during the day, 8 o'clock till 3 o'clock, the kids are in class, essentially. So all of us as staff here, we teach 2 or 3 subjects each. And these kids are in class from 8 till 3:30. And then their class finishes, and then we take them all onto the river. And so all of us as teachers also paddle, and then we kayak in the afternoons every day of the week. And then the weekends, just like a normal school, we have the weekends off where the morning might be a bit cruisier, and then we go on a bigger paddling section, or we go and kayak something a bit different on the weekends. And then we do that in 4 different places around the world, kind of throughout the year. So each quarter is in a different country, typically.
And what sort of countries are we talking? Did I get those countries right at the start? Where have you been?
In terms of World Class Academy as an umbrella, yeah, we go to so many different places. The Kayak Academy specifically, this year we're going to Canada, then we're in New Zealand at the moment with the school, which is really cool. And then we go to Chile, and then our 4th quarter is in Europe, and we kind of spread that between Italy, Slovenia, and Austria. First and the last quarter are 6 weeks, and then the middle 2 are 7 weeks long, and that gives us 25 weeks of schooling for the year, which maybe doesn't sound like a lot compared to a typical school, but I think the intensity at which these kids learn, because they're in such close quarters, really adds to their experience here, and they come out pretty well off, I would say.
Okay, I've got questions. What's the age of the kids?
Okay, so we're an accredited school in the US. So in terms of schooling, it's a registered school in Oregon, I think, but we never spend any time in the US as an actual school. And then the kids are high school age. So we accept any kids from 14 to 18 to graduating as a senior. Typically, they kind of range in the middle there. We don't accept too many freshmen, I think is the word they use in America, like the 14-year-olds, the really young ones, just because it's a little bit harder for them to be away from home and have these experiences as freely as kids that are a little bit older and a little bit more mature and a little bit more independent.
How do they get in? Is it an application process that's somewhat like a CV, or how does that work?
Yeah, so our school, I'm the program director in the field, and we have a head of school who is not in the field. He makes the plan of where the school's going to go and hires the staff, and they do all the recruiting. And so everyone applies, all of the students apply to him as the head of school, and then he would interview them and then offer acceptance packets to these students to come into the program. And sometimes there's lots of kids on the wait list, and we might have we have 22 spots available. There might be 30 kids trying to get in, and sometimes we have 18 students and we're searching for those to fill those last couple of spots.
Is that 22 as in the rafting, or is it 22 in the surfing?
Each academy has 22 kids, give or take, all have different maxes that they kind of identify works the best for their school. So I think the bike academy is starting to identify that maybe like 19 or 20 is a better number just for logistics when they get to places, because we have all of the equipment for all of our sports too, right? So when we go kayaking in every country, we have to rent vans and trailers and sometimes drivers to drive us everywhere because we're not allowed to drive, or logistically, the more people you get, the harder it becomes.
Where are the surfers going, Mitchell?
The school's a new school, actually. They haven't done their first year yet, but it's just developing. And this year, I think they're doing, I don't know in what order, but they go Costa Rica, Indonesia, Peru, and Portugal, I think, are the four stops.
Wicked.
Yeah, and this is the first, come August next year will be like, hopefully the school gets up and running. They have enough student interest. That'll be the first year that the Surf Academy operates, yeah.
Okay, so how do they pay for it? Because this is full immersion. This is paying for you, their guide, equipment, food, activities, sleeping arrangements. This is massive. Do you know, and what do I pay if I have a child I'm trying to get rid of? What are we looking at?
Yeah, I think depending on the academy, because different academies will stay in, maybe like for example, the bike academy, they always have to pay for bike passes at the bike parks, and so fees can change a little bit between academies, but we're looking at probably $44,000 to $50,000 for the whole year. And then on top of
food, everything.
On top of that, you'd pay for your flights to each location.
Sure.
And all of your equipment. So that's just their school fees and like all of their accommodation, food, transport. The idea with the school is that once they land in a country, everyone has the same opportunity regardless of their background. And so if a kid that has worked a lot harder to get here and we've given them maybe a little bit of a scholarship, they might not have as much money as some kids that just have a wealthy family and they can pay for it outright. And so giving them the same opportunities once we land is kind of what we aim to do.
And what sort of nationalities? Do you have Kiwi kids paying for this?
As far as I know, I think there's been like 2 or 3 Kiwi students that have gone through the program. And students can come for a semester, which is really cool. So that's 2 quarters, 2 school terms. And so that's what makes it a little bit easier for some students that can't afford it as much as they just come and they spend 22 grand, or maybe they get a scholarship and some of that's deducted. And the students come for 1 semester. They do 2 quarters of the school year, and it's a really cool experience, but they don't necessarily graduate with the school or finish their school year with world class.
What academic qualification are they receiving? Is it Cambridge exams? Is it what
Right.
qualifications are you working towards?
Yeah, well, it's an accredited high school in the US, and so every 3 or 4 years we get audited, and the school has a bunch of academic resources in the Google Drive that we all have access to. And then a lot of these students, we offer the a training course for the SAT exam, which is for the US schooling, or students can take AP classes, which in the US you can take college level classes in high school to get a credit that goes towards your college grade. I think we do weighted GPAs. It's all in the American schooling system, which you'd think I'd know all about it by now, but I'm still figuring things out.
Because it's not NCA is going or whatever. But yeah, it's like the SAT, some people will take it in their junior, so year 12, and then they might reset them in year 13. But SATs in general just seem very strange to non-Americans, because it's you can take them early, you can retake them, but that's what they use to get into colleges. So I'm sure if some people, your non-Americans, want to do it, it does help them get into the States, because...
Yeah, and a lot of the US schools now say whether or not they care if someone takes the SAT. So a lot of these kids do research into what college they want to go to, and they look up and they go, oh, okay, these colleges don't require me to take an SAT. It just goes off references and my GPA at my high school, which our high school has, I guess, unless you went to, I don't know, one of the top private high schools in the US, you pretty much gain the same scores regardless of the school that you go to. So our GPA is it weighs the same amount as any other high school in the US would.
But also, right, a lot of these students aren't necessarily looking for to enter uni. Like they're here at a world-class academy. Like, maybe that they want to go into the outdoor instructing themselves. Or I think, remember, one of your colleagues, Sam, he was a student and then now he is a teacher in the school. Because, of course, Ludlam, when they were in Europe, Lamb and some of his mates came through Amsterdam. So I saw him then as well. Like, that's just the other benefit of this life he's living. So that was something I thought was cool, was he was a student and then did whatever back and now as a...
And a surprising, I guess, from the outside, it looks like a very outdoor-focused school, and you'd think a lot of these kids aren't very academically motivated, but 95% of these kids will go to university and they'll graduate university or college and like probably do a master's, and like a lot of these kids are really academically driven, and being in such close-knit classes, like we have 4 math classes here for 23 kids, and so we have max maybe 6 or 7 kids in a class. That's really good for their development as a student. Like they learn so much. And Sam, for example, he was a student at World Class. He went and got his degree in engineering. He did his master's in fluid dynamics or something, and now he's back at World Class just as like that in between of studying and then studying his career. And
what sort of pay are you getting, Mitchell? Are you, because you're a teacher, you're a guide, you're a what?
Yeah, we do all sorts, Ludlam, and we definitely, I guess the school's working on developing the pay scale a little bit, but you're not doing it for the money at the moment, that's for sure.
No.
I'm pretty fortunate. I think that the American to New Zealand currency right now is really good. So it means that I get paid in American dollars and it gets put into my bank account in New Zealand, and the conversion rate really helps me out, but it's still not a lot of money.
Give me a number, Mitchell.
You don't...
I think a starting staff member will get 22 grand US, 23 grand US for the year at World Class, but they don't have to pay for anything once they land.
Yeah, and that conversion, that's not bad.
Exactly. Once you take into the fact that the account that you don't have to pay for your food or your travel or your baggage, and you can land and explore these places without much expenses, it does work out. Somehow I've still managed to not save anything, but this year I'm committed to budgeting better this time.
Well, before you enter the personal recession, that's what I'm calling mine, Lamb. I must enter that soon. Part of this lifestyle too is all the other places. Like, yes, maybe now as program director, you don't get as much of that switch off in between terms because you're busy organizing logistics and stuff. But like, in terms of just like your career in between semesters or terms, how much break do you get? Do you get to go somewhere else? Are you going back to New Zealand to work? Like,
yeah, so in between the first and the second quarter, we get 3 weeks, which is a good amount of time. And then in between, like over the Christmas break, we get a 5-week break, which is awesome. And so my girlfriend's from California. So after the first quarter, I went to California and hung out for just over 2 weeks, and then flew to New Zealand, and I'll be here for the summer, and I'll do a bit of rafting and catch up with friends. And then after Chile, I'm going to stay in Chile for a little bit and travel and go to California and then fly from there to Europe. You definitely get to, if we have a certain amount of money we can spend on flights, and if the flight path we choose is more than that, we just top it up ourselves, and we can kind of go wherever we want after each quarter in those breaks, which is pretty awesome.
I remember, Mitchell, going when I was training to be a teacher. We went to, it was in Martin somewhere, a school. It was a boarding school. And some of the teachers got exceptionally upset at the whole boarding school system that parents would send, it was quite young, 10-year-olds away from home.
Yep.
And I was oblivious. I didn't know why they were getting so upset. But I suppose in reflection, they were sort of suggesting there was a parenting role that people were ignoring. I mean, but in New Zealand, they can be sent to St. Peter's, they can be sent to boarding schools everywhere. How do you find that relationship between kids and parents? Do kids struggle with it? Yeah, what's your reflection on what they're doing for them?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good question, Ludlam, because a lot of these kids come into the school with, especially probably the ones that are paying the full tuition fee, they probably come in with a little bit of a disconnect to their parents sometimes, I would say. Not all the time, but it's that sometimes that typical family where the mum and the dad work so hard and they've done so well for themselves that they actually didn't spend that much time with their child growing up. And my mentee, for example, one of the kids that I look after more closely, he has been going to boarding school since he was 8. His parents are divorced and they both work really hard in different places, but in the breaks, sometimes he won't even go and stay with his parents. He'll go and stay with like his grandparents or his auntie or uncle. And he really, and I talked to him about this the other day, and he said, "Oh, I don't really miss them because he never experienced that." So that's a really interesting approach. But yeah, I guess I as teachers too kind of fill that role for these kids. Like some of these, we get really close to some of these students, and after 2 or 3 years with them in the program, they kind of feel like your little siblings a little bit, which is quite a cool relationship to develop with them.
That's what I was going to dwell on that. Like as a teacher in New Zealand, I got to know Grace and I got to know kids, but the level you would get to know these kids at, and with that, I mean, you've got to be careful as a teacher in a normal environment with those relationships. I mean, a kid could eventually see you as dad.
Yeah.
And really sort of latch on. Are there conversations around that, and what are those relationships?
Totally. It's a challenging one that we as staff talk about all the time, is trying to like navigate that boundary between being there for these students in their really tough times, but also remaining like professional and making sure that they still understand we're their teacher first, and keeping that relationship professional, which is really challenging. And I mean, obviously sometimes the lines get blurred, and if you were in a normal school, it probably certain things wouldn't be acceptable. But I guess being in a school like this and you're in this close environment, like you wake up, you see the kids, you go to bed, they're knocking on your door at 10:30 at night because something's going on in their cabin, or at 9:30 they're asking you to do their homework with them. So those boundaries, those lines get blurred a little bit working in this environment. But at the end of the day, the relationships you build kind of what are part of what make it really worthwhile, at least for me.
And your personal relationship, you said you had a partner. So she's in California. So you go away for 6 weeks or so. She doesn't see you. Like the kids won't see mum or dad. Then you come back, reintroduce yourself to her. And is that how it works?
Yeah, for the most part. She worked for the program last year, so we traveled together, which was quite convenient. And then, now we're just making it work for the time being while I'm here and she's at home.
Okay. And connection to you, you're in New Zealand at the moment, are you?
Correct. Yeah, we're actually in Rotorua paddling the Kaituna every day, which is pretty special for me. So.
Yeah, I bet. I was going to say, I always ask the Kiwi kids who are overseas, when you're overseas in particular and you talk about your country, do you still have a real resonation with this place? Does it feel...
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. New Zealand's definitely home, and it's where I love New Zealand so much. It's such a safe, peaceful country, and I think being exposed to so many different cultures and environments through this job and through my own personal travel really makes me grateful and appreciate what we have here in New Zealand. And sometimes it's easy to get caught up in our own little bubble of the drama and the politics in our country, and then you look at it big picture and global scale, and you really start to think at the end of the day we're still so much better off than 95% of the world. So I guess I've just got a really big appreciation for the country.
Have you got one or two quite scary stories? You're dealing with danger most days with these kids. I mean, we've had them at our old high school where, there's been a few dicey situations. Or have you had some sort of heart and mouth that was close?
Yeah, and definitely whitewater kayaking is one of those things that when shit hits the fan, nothing stops. The river doesn't stop moving for you when you crash like it does if you're mountain biking. It's kind of similar to surfing in that way. But yeah, we've had, there's definitely moments where, you want to push these kids to improve and challenge themselves on the river. And the first year I was really nervous and stressed the whole time because I was watching these kids do things that maybe they're not quite ready for, and was I ready to deal with the consequences if they didn't make it work? And we're not talking like severe consequences, but, them swimming down a really big rapid because they swam out of their kayak and I couldn't get to them in time, or those kind of things definitely start to play on your mind, and it probably is the reason that I'm bald now. But there's definitely moments, probably more times than I can count, where I'm like, oh my gosh, is today the day that it's gonna all go down, and somehow it all ends up okay at the end of the day. But I think I've learned to be comfortable in that place of like fear for the students, and just know that I can only do as much as I can, and you can challenge these kids in a sustainable way, and there's still an aspect of risk that they're exposed to, and they understand that, or at least we try to help them understand that.
Yeah. Where does liability sit? Because you're operating out of America pretty much, which
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I don't even know the answer to that one, to be honest. Like, if something were to happen, I don't know what our
You don't have protection that you know of legally that
I don't know,
A lot of paperwork, just from my American experience. Like, that's why you said the man, I can't remember his title, who just stays in the one place. Like,
Yeah.
is he in Oregon or is he in the States?
He's from Canada, but yeah, we have we have a vice principal that lives in Oregon and a principal that lives in Costa Rica
Like, they're
/ Oregon half the time, and so they do all of that
yeah.
behind the scenes stuff and make sure that we're like insured and accredited and have liability insurance and
all the things. It's interesting too. Like, we've obviously had conversations. One thing I wanted to mention about the safety part, which I liked, was you said there's like a motto of, if the camera wasn't there, would you still do it? Because of course, as we mentioned, you go on Lamb's Instagram, there's some pretty gnarly things, but would you still do it if the camera wasn't around? Because sometimes, you boulder when it is there.
there would have been not a lot going on in my room if the camera had been on, Grace.
Yeah. But then the other thing, Lamb, which I want to touch on, because I know we're coming to time too, is like, we've talked about what's transferable, because there's so many things that you're talking about that, again, how do you put that into a CV, or what goes next?
yeah.
It ties back to when you first started in the Polytech. It's full immersion. And when you meet people in space, like, I think anyone who's been in the outdoor space, just, you can't help but love the instructors or the people who are there. So there's this community that, while there's not traditional routes, they look out for each other.
Yeah.
And so what's next, Christian? I mean, it's a bit weird, and it's not as straightforward as maybe if you had gone physio.
Totally.
But the people and the connections and just everyone I've met from your world who's in outdoor ed, I mean, those are some of the best people, right?
Yeah, I've definitely learned a lot through this experience, and it's not something that I'm going to do forever, because it's not a very sustainable environment. You're never in one place. You can't enjoy anything outside of the program. Like, while you're here, you're in it. Maybe you can sneak out for an evening after the students have had dinner to like catch up with a friend for a beer, but really we wake up at 6 o'clock to go do morning workout with the kids 5 days a week, and then from then you're preparing your classes or teaching them, and then you go kayaking. So I guess, yeah, there are a lot of skills that I've learned, and I think the last couple months I've spent a lot of time thinking about what's next for me too.
What is it? What isn't? What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, I think for a long time, Blair, I was looking into going into healthcare. When I was in Greymouth, I volunteered on the ambulance, and that was really fun. And I really enjoyed working in that kind of fast-paced, think on your feet environment. And then I got a job working for Peak, which is a events first aid medical company in Rotorua here that do different events. And so I was a medic for them for a while, kind of on the side of rafting. And I always thought that I'd come back to being a paramedic or working in a hospital as a nurse. And I think last time I talked to Grace, I said that I was going to go and study nursing. I've started thinking about how I can apply the skills I've learned in this job and maybe supplement them with a little bit of post-education in terms of maybe try and get, utilize what I've learned and do a postgrad in something that can take me down that kind of logistics or management pathway where you're like running and operating an outdoor education company, or for like something like Knowles, which is National Outdoor Leadership School in the States, or Outward Bound, or those kind of avenues that don't require me to go back to school for 3 years and move into a career that I'm unsure of, and kind of take what I've learned and keep going down this path, because so far I've just followed my likes and dislikes, and I've gone with what I enjoy, and then it's taken me here, which is a pretty awesome opportunity so far.
That last little about your last 30 seconds was your clip of the summary. It was beautiful. I think we get, and that's exactly who you represent today, isn't it, Mitchell? It's it's the kid who just loves so much the stuff they do. And I was going to ask, how much difference is it from what you did with Johnny as the same age as the kids you had?
Yeah.
How much is it amplified, or is it not?
I mean, it has and it hasn't, right? Like, I think I definitely get in a closer relationship with the students that I'm teaching because we spend a lot more time with them. But that idea that I'm somebody that helps facilitate these experiences for them and moves through those experiences with them brings you so much closer to these people. And that's why I looked up to Johnny so much, is because of his character and how he helped us navigate these like challenging environments. And that's what I kind of wanted to pass on to these kids. And I want them to look up to me when they're older, you know, and I really respected Johnny, and I still have a lot of gratitude for the way that he taught and his ethos and kind of how he approached school. And that's kind of what I just strive to pass on to the next group of kids.
Yeah, and we mentioned it earlier, the whole outdoor ed argument, you know, in the New Zealand context. It's actually a ridiculous conversation to even have because, you know, kids like yourself, Johnny, I mean, there's lots of them. Even like we threw our daughter in year 13, right. Johnny took her in simply for the other type of kid that just needs to grow in confidence and be exposed to something different. And it's
so and everyone can learn something from outdoor education, whether you're an academic student or a student that hates school and they just need something that they connect with. But I think outdoor education is so valuable, especially in this day and age when everyone's connected to their devices 24/7. Kind of blew my mind that it was possible to get rid of it, because it feels like it's only going to become more important as we get like more and more disconnected from the environment and further intertwined with technology. You know, there's like glasses that you can, you know, the meta glasses or whatever, now that your technology is not even at your fingertips anymore, it's just hovering over your eyes. It's really important in my mind to keep that aspect of education alive, because people learn so much in it. And New Zealand's well known for its tourism. It's one of our biggest exports. And so who's going to be the next generation of our tourism leaders and run these companies if we don't have these subjects in our school? Like, it's a massive part of our economy.
Yeah. Have you had some superstars go through your program that you've identified as like they're incredible? I mean, I know you're good at what you do. What are that? You've seen some or not?
Yeah, I mean, we've had kids come through. The first year that I worked at the school, a kid graduated as a senior, and then we took him on a whitewater kayaking trip to Norway, and he was like one of the most talented 17-year-olds in the world in a kayak at the time, probably. So in terms of kayaking, we definitely see some of the best kayakers in the world, whitewater kayakers in the world, have gone through this world-class academy program. It's been around for 20 plus years. The Kayak Academy is the longest one standing. And then, you know, these kids that are also amazing kayakers go on. A student that graduated with my colleague Sam, he's just graduated med school and he's going to be a doctor in the States. There's students that are like graduating to be lawyers, and, you know, these really upper class professions. So it's, yeah, they've learned a lot and they come out of it, and then later on down the track, they go back to school and they go into these really impressive careers. So it is pretty cool to see.
So you'd recommend New Zealand parents, kids, if they ever got an opportunity to look at world class, you wouldn't have a hesitation?
Yeah, absolutely not. I think it's an amazing experience for anyone to have the opportunity to undertake. I mean, you learn through travel and immersion in so many different places, by seeing so many different cultures, by being surrounded by people 24/7. You know, these kids go to university afterwards and they're ahead of their peers because they already know what it's like to live with people, and they already know how to manage their stuff and their personal space and their time, and they know how to set clear boundaries when they need some space from their friends. And I think they learn so many other aspects, as well as the education, that are really important into creating like a really strong individual later in life. So 100%.
Oh, well, look, I'm proud of a New Zealand and a Cambridge kid is over there doing it. Like, that's really cool. I must admit, when I told my kids, I don't know whether you remember my kids or not, but
I remember playing water polo with them, actually, or helping them play water polo. Yeah.
Yeah, their eyes lit up like a lot of people do when you say your name. It's synonymous with lots of things. Look, so really cool.
The good and the bad, I bet.
Oh, no, look, it's brilliant. It's living life. You're like Grace, you know, like you can't criticize the way you live, which is really cool. And I'm glad you're back in New Zealand for a while. And thank you for sharing time with us. And like I say, I've been an advocate for outdoor ed, for people like Johnny who fight for this thing for kids. And themselves, because I don't deny you get a lot out of it, and same with John. I don't think he could live any other way. That's him. But look, thanks for your time, and this will be a really good thing for a lot of kids. So,
thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome to chat.
Yeah, no, wicked. Grace has got some questions probably.
Last question is, we always ask, if you had to go back to year 12/13, and give him advice, not to all the other generic kids, but just you to you, what would you say?
I thought about this because I listened to the last couple podcasts and heard the question asked. And I think I'd just tell myself to follow my dreams and like jump head on into challenges. Like if you're interested in something and you get an opportunity presents itself, like take it, jump at it, roll with it and see where it takes you. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but at least you can say you tried, and then continue to follow those passions and those ideas, and like just put all your energy into the things that you enjoy, and something's going to come out of them. Like that's how I ended up in this position here, and now I'm stoked, and it's going to change my outlook on everything. So yeah, just jumping into those opportunities and making sure you take them head on and really make the most of everything that's around you.
Fantastic. Well, go change some lives today with those kids in New Zealand. I'll see you when I'm back there in about a month. Shout out to Johnny Peter, because I didn't take outdoor ed, but it's probably the only regret from high school is not like that. But honestly, thank you so much, Lam. I love this. I can't wait to share it with everyone.
Well, thanks for having me, and I look forward to seeing you in a month.